What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Eris of Set the Sun. Thanks for being here today, man. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here with these two new singles out, New Condition and Invisible. Is this maybe a good representation of what the entirety of this debut EP is going to sound like, or is that just scratching the surface of what we're going to hear more of?
Well, that's a great question. I would say, actually, I don't think this was intentionally how we approached the EP when we wrote it, but all five of the songs are pretty different one from the next. So I think the stuff that you'll hear so far that you've heard so far is similar to what you'll hear coming out next. So the next single that we had to delay a little bit, but it's going to come out in January. It's a track called The Way Back, and it's maybe one of our more radio friendly tracks. And then we have another couple that definitely go into the more experimental side of things, a little bit proggy. So you definitely, I think, between the first two singles that you've heard so far here, I think it's a good representation, but you're going to hear more variation as well.
hmm Was there like a preconceived idea behind the CP, like let's make something more experimental, or did it kind of just sort of happen that way?
Just sort of happened. I think that we'd actually just finished recording another batch of songs, and we were planning to release that, and then the lockdown happened, and so we figured we'd take advantage of that opportunity to write some new material. And yeah, there wasn't a concept or a major design behind it. It was just more what we were sort of feeling at the time.
Yeah, so it was sort of like meant to like capture a moment, if you will.
Absolutely, for
Mhm.
sure.
Now, with Invisible, you collaborated with Ryan Clark of Demon Hunter, great singer, and Demon Hunter could pretty much do no wrong. I don't understand how they put out albums as frequently as they do, and they make them all pretty damn good. But working with Ryan Clark, I mean, kind of a cliche question, but A, what was it like working with him, and did it also maybe teach you new things as well on how to uh, hone your craft as a songwriter?
Yeah, he was, I mean, it was really a privilege to be able to work with Ryan. He is such a humble individual. He's so generous with his time, and he really, I mean, we connected with him through a couple of friends of friends. And I think as we've been fans of his music for a very long time. And I think maybe we sort of, because we were such admirers of his work, we probably are attracted to the same sort of things. So when he took a listen to the music, he connected with it. But I think once we got past the notion of do we want to work together, we had actually traded a few different songs back and forth. In fact, there's a couple more collaborations that we've done with him. We haven't necessarily finished, mixed, and mastered them, but the beautiful thing about Ryan is he was always really open to what our vision was. And so he said, what exactly do you picture me doing on this song? And how can I bring that vision to reality? So there was really no ego. There was nothing like that. It was this incredibly collaborative process where he just tried to make sure that he was bringing what we had in mind to the table. And I remember he just naturally went to, I think, the same sort of things that we had in our head. So to be honest, this sounds a little bit cliche, but it was just so natural working with him. And I think it just, I don't know what the major takeaway was beyond just the fact that we were really, we felt very fortunate to work with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a voice of what I like to call Octane Rock. That's my genre of like modern day
Oh yeah.
rock music, which is something I also would refer to like Set the Sun in a way. And going back to like the experimental sound that y'all have, like, do you almost feel that that adds like a lot more flexibility to try new things? It almost seems like the sky's the limit, and there's nothing that can't be incorporated in the Set the Sun song.
Well, I think that's our goal, and that's what's been beneficial as primarily a two-person writing outfit. Is we often will have different ideas that we want to bring to the table. So Ark, who's obviously got an incredible voice, he just has such an incredible ear for vocal melodies. and what's gonna feel catchy but still feel original. And so we'll sometimes one of us will want to go more into the crazy territory, and one of us wants to rein it in. And that dynamic of the two of us, I feel, leads to a good balance of things that feel fresh, but not just abstract for the sake of being abstract.
Yeah, because there's some people who often like confuse, just like you have to be artsy, so therefore it has to be. Some people combined sort of conflate the artsy with sort of like mediocrity in a way, and like
Yeah.
taking which is something that infuriates the hell out of me as somebody who went to art school. So like I think it's good that you have like plenty of experimentation and the sky is the limit, but like you also know how to contain yourself in a way.
I think so. At the end of the day, we still want to be fans of our own music, and we don't want to write something that on the fifth play is going to feel tired, or we're going to be exhausted to hear it again. And so, knowing that we're going to be playing these songs live, that we're going to be hearing them a million times when we're doing music videos, we want them to be something that we can continue to be proud of for a long period of time.
Going by the names of Arc and Eris, I mean, I've always been fascinated by band members who do go by alias. I've interviewed enough black metal bands to make it quite common in my journalistic career. But do you almost feel that maybe like going by these names that like you're almost in a way portraying like a character or something, or maybe portraying a persona outside of who you personally are in Set the Sun?
I think it's an extension of us individually. Almost more like an alter ego. I think it allows us to sort of let go of whatever past music projects we might have done or might still be involved with on the side, and sort of try something, just approach things in a little bit more of an original way. We also want to make sure with the project, because we're trying to look at this as something we're going to be doing for a very long period of time. And there's a lot of material that we've written that hasn't come out yet. We wanted to make sure that the music is front and center. And so we didn't necessarily want our own personal names to be strongly attached to that. And we really want to create a real story and a brand that goes beyond what the music is. We're very visual people, so when we're writing a song, we're also thinking about what does this music video look like? What's the visual experience going to be like? How can we create something more than music for fans to latch onto, so that we can create almost this type of universe that goes along with it, like a package. When we think about the artists that we have massive amounts of respect for, they really create a whole world that surrounds the music. And we felt that it was important to sort of take that on as well. And so I think that the names that we've adopted were very intentional decisions. We picked those names for very specific reasons. And we just felt that that was the best sort of way to match the music, is to come up with a matching brand, matching names.
I do want to say that I have been because I'm friends with a lot of like black metal elitists who like so I have been like recommending your band, being like, oh yeah, it's with Arc and Eris. I mean, that sounds pretty cult, right? And then they're like, oh, I'll check it out, and then I get a message like, what the fuck is this? Just to let you know, I've had a little fun with you guys.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that with them.
Yeah. But having this visual experience, I mean, was this a vision that you had like even before you started putting a pen to paper on writing music, or did this vision kind of like come as you were writing more and more songs and getting more acquainted with each other?
We've written together, and both of us have been involved in the music industry for probably the last 10 or so years under different projects. And I think when we approached this one, there was one song in particular that we ended up co-writing a couple of years ago. And it just felt so different from everything else that we put together before, and it felt fresh. And it was actually that one song, oddly enough, and this is like total coincidence, it was a song called Sunsets. And we had written this a few years ago, and we both sort of sat down and said, this is a different band, this is a different name, this is a different sound, and we should pursue this, and continue to create sort of a world that sort of fits this sound. And yeah, I think immediately we knew that all those other things were going to sort of come as a result of it. So I would say it was very much influenced by the music itself.
And do you and Ark almost kind of like need to be in the same headspace or be in the same frame of mind when writing the music together, in order to like to make the song sound consistent and to make it sound like it's coming from both of you? Or do you maybe find it better when maybe you both are in different states of mind and that could add to your experimental qualities?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think it works sort of both ways, and we have different approaches. One of us is definitely more of a tinkerer and a perfectionist, and one of us is more of a gut feel, go with it and move fast kind of thing. And so I think that balance, or that different approach, we push each other, and we keep pushing each other until we both like the song. And oftentimes we'll be working with it, and either one person will be really satisfied or the other person won't be, and you just keep pushing ahead until we're both in love with it. So we have a quote unquote like graveyard of probably dozens of songs where we're not both equally in love with the track. And so coming back to your question about frame of mind, I think it's definitely, if I think about the songs that we've both written that we've been most excited about, yeah, it's probably when we've both been in the same sort of frame of mind, when we're both envisioning the same sort of thing. But it can definitely work the other way. And sometimes when you just push and push and push, eventually you just hit the right thing. It's hard to describe. Like, the creative process is so unpredictable and random at times. But that's sort of, I think that's been the beauty of what's made the tracks, something that we've been so happy with, is just that simple writing room where it's the two of us and you keep pushing until you love it. And then sometimes we felt that the track has been almost ready, but it's missing a little something. And that's when we've had these great opportunities to reach out to people like Ryan and been like, we think this needs some heavy vocals, or we think this needs this at this point. And then that song goes from something you really like to something you love. And so when you're in that two-person sort of writing dynamic, one of the things that we've been very aware of is that sometimes you get sort of this tunnel vision with a track. And when you can pull back and have someone listen to it for the first time with like a fresh pair of ears, they can hear something that's missing that maybe you can't hear anymore. So we naturally wanted to approach the writing process that way, where it's really just the two of us. And then at the last stage, how can we involve like another great writer that we have huge amounts of respect for, to add a little something extra that maybe we hadn't heard. And that flow has been really, really cool. I think it's worked very well for us.
You mentioned that there are songs that you left out. Are you ever worried that the songs you leave out of the EP or the album are going to be a B-side one day and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
That's a great question. I think at some point all of those tracks will make their way out. Usually one of the two of us loves something enough to keep tweaking with it or resurrect it. So we're definitely thinking about things like B-sides and special releases and stuff like that. We'd love to put the majority of what we've written out to the world at some point.
And kind of like being that, as you mentioned, that this is a very collaborative effort, but like, do you almost, because isolation is sometimes a great fuel for creativity, do you almost feel that like sometimes it's better to write when you're more alone and you guys are apart from each other? Or do you find that a Set the Sun song, the songwriting process, is you two being in the company of each other?
Well, we've done both. And so what's interesting about this EP is this EP was written totally remotely. So one of the two of us would start with an idea, whether it was a beat or a riff or even some lyrics, and we would trade back an idea back and forth, and we were doing this fully remotely. Whereas the album that we've already recorded, that was, I would say, 90% of it written in the same room. So we don't live in the same city, and I think, if anything, this EP was like forced us to write remotely, and I think it worked pretty well. It sort of gave each person the ability or the amount of time that they needed to really flesh out an idea before we shared it back with the other person. Sometimes when you're in the same room, you sort of want to deliver something quickly and you want it to be amazing right off the bat. That doesn't always happen. So yeah, it was a totally different process. So it'll be interesting to see how people respond to the EP and how different they feel it sounds from the eventual record. Maybe a lot of it has to do with whether it was remote or not. I don't know.
Hmm. I mean, I think a lot of people, a lot of rock and roll elitists are like saying this remote thing it takes away the organic nature. I'm like, we have all this technology at our disposal, and you know what? There's plenty of albums that have come out in the last 2 years that were all written remotely that are actually a pretty damn good. So I think maybe it's working in the favor, including with your material.
It definitely works, but there's also something magical about being in the same room, and the second that perfect riff comes out, you can sort of jump on it and you can say, "Oh, I really love that." And so just the ability, I think, to riff and like keep iterating on an idea until everyone in the room loves it, you can definitely do that a lot faster. Whereas if you have to track something at home, then record it, and the person is like, do I like it, do I not? It's this sort of weird binary thing. Whereas if you're in a room, you can just jam until the right thing perfectly emerges. So I think there's pros and cons to both, and it probably leads to totally different song sound, like a different sound.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time and for such a great discussion. I also want to point out for all the viewers, this is an audio interview, in case you couldn't tell. Your logo is probably one of the coolest like logos. It's like so simple, but like while you were talking, I was actually just like looking into your logo the whole time. Like
Thanks.
whoever,
Yeah, as simple as it sounds, we spent a lot of probably way too much time talking about it and debating it. We wanted something that felt iconic, that was easy for someone to pick up a pen and do it themselves.
yeah,
So yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out.
that is just genius. That logo. Whoever designed that, give them my props, please. And they must show me their way. But is there just anything else that you would like to promote for Set the Sun with the release of this EP? I know you can't say the title just yet, but I'd imagine we'll also be seeing y'all on the road quite a bit, right?
Yeah, that's the plan next year. Obviously, a lot of touring plans have gotten a little delayed with COVID, but yeah, I think next year you'll be seeing us on the road. So, I would say keep an eye out for a January release. We apologize that things have been a little bit slower than planned, but I think it's going to be worth the wait. The 5-song EP you'll hear in January. I think it's something we're super, super proud of. And the beautiful thing is that we've got a whole bunch of other material to follow up right after that. So I think you'll be hearing from us quite a bit next year.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Set the Sun. Be sure to check out their new EP coming very soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.